Tonight I want you to hear Jesus' words, often talked about on Good Friday, but his words that apply to you and me each and every day. Truly, I tell you, Jesus said, today you will be with me in paradise. With the few breaths he had left, start again. Good evening, friends. I'm so happy to be with you again tonight. And I want you to hear deeply in your soul, soul to soul, these words of Jesus tonight. Truly, I tell you, today you will be with me in paradise. We know these as some of the last words that Jesus spoke from the cross, often talked about on Good Friday. But tonight I want you to hear them as new, as real to your life and to my life. With the few breaths he had left, Jesus breathes out words that resound across the centuries. These words that are carved out in history. These words that perhaps are some of the greatest commentary on his character. We pay attention, particular attention, to people's last words. We hang on to those words. How often have you heard someone say, or you have said yourself, one of the last things they said to me was? I've sat with a lot of people who were in their dying moments, and I remember things that they have said to me. I know that is true for many of you. And this was one of the last things Jesus said. Jesus was being executed by the state, by the oppressive and cruel Roman Empire. On either side hung two criminals. We don't know who they were. We don't know what they had done. The three crosses. We may ask the same questions that we might ask today. Who called them criminals? Criminals in whose eyes? Clearly, there are bad actors in society. There are criminals who do harm to others, who are violent, who commit unacceptable acts. That's true. But we also know, if we're really honest, that many are criminalized in our society because of the color of their skin. Many are criminalized in our society because of what neighborhood they live in. Many are criminalized because they do or do not have some document. Many are criminalized because they dare to speak out against a system that oppressed them. We have no idea about these two who hung on the cross on either side of Jesus. No idea of what they did or didn't do. All we know is that they, along with Jesus, were considered criminals by the Roman Empire and branded worthy of crucifixion. They were executed by an evil system. And here's what else we don't know about these two. We don't know if they were men or women. The story, the scripture just says two criminals. Now, it may be startling to think of women being crucified. But in some ways, perhaps it brings it closer to home. It makes reality the horror of that day, the utter disregard of life. And people may question whether women were crucified during that time, but there are references from history that tell us that that is so. There are references in history that tell us that big sweeps of masses of people took place, especially of slaves, especially of the underclass. And those masses were crucified on the hills around Jerusalem. And there is no doubt in my mind that women were a part of those masses. There's no doubt in my mind that this didn't include women. Women have suffered horrors throughout history. We know this. So we don't know what they did or didn't do. We don't know if it was two men or a man and a woman. But here's what we do know. One of the criminals asked Jesus to be remembered. And here's what we do know. Jesus, gasping for breath, forced to use his own words sparingly, said, "Truly I tell you." It means pay attention. I'm saying this with all my heart. Truly I tell you, today, right now, in this moment, in the midst of this horror, today, you will be with me. In their shared brokenness, they were not alone. In the midst of injustice, of human failing, of evil, grace triumphed. Grace could not be crucified. And grace is beautiful because it can overpower even the most terrible situations. Grace is not measured by the deserving or the undeserving. That is the whole point of grace. Notice that Jesus didn't ask the woman to confess. He didn't ask her, "Well, what did you do?" He didn't ask her, "Well, why are you here?" We know, along with the civil rights lawyer Brian Stevenson, each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. Let me say that again. Each of us is more than the worst thing we've ever done. But grace triumphed. Love triumphed that day. In the midst of gruesome state violence, in the epic human sin that Golgotha, that those crosses represented, grace triumphed. Grace is powerful because grace leaves no one behind. Jesus said, "You will be with me. I will not abandon you. My love cannot be crucified. Today, you will be with me in paradise." That place of righteousness, that place of beauty, that place where you are seen, that place where you are remembered. Jesus assures us with some of his last words that we will be remembered in God's heart, that you will be remembered in God's heart, no matter what. Take consolation in these words of Jesus, which so illustrate the grace and love of God that is for you, no matter what. Amen.